Also this morning, two men who admit that they were probably the most polarizing leaders in Cincinnati during the 2001 protests sat down with Good Morning Tri-State anchor Julie O'Neill. It's their first interview together since that time. They weighed in on the unrests here in the country following the death of George Floyd last summer and what the nation can learn from the city of Cincinnati.
It takes a lot for the pot to boil over, to get what you had 20 years ago.
When anger finally spilled into the streets of Cincinnati in April 2001, the lines were sharply drawn. The Reverend Damon Lynch III leading one side.
I think that it's important that we ask ourselves, where do we go from here?
Fraternal Order of Police President Keith Fangman leading the other.
Just as, Reverend Lynch leads his flock and is an advocate for his flock, my job was to defend my police officers. That's what I was elected to do.
But as the two sit down for an interview for the first time since their fiery exchanges 20 years ago, it seems the lines have blurred a bit.
It's good to see Keith again. We've both changed a lot. I have no hair. People may not be able to see. Keith actually has a ponytail.
The now retired Fangman says he and others in the law enforcement family really leaned in after seeing the video of George Floyd at the knee of former Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin.
It was the most horrific thing I had ever seen in not only in my entire career as a police officer in the city of Cincinnati, as a beat cop my whole career, but in my entire lifetime. I was absolutely shocked.
Fangman hopes people see a paradigm shift that came as outraged police shattered the idea of a blue wall of silence. Progress, says the Reverend.
No matter who we are, whether it's me as president of Black United Front, pastor of a church, Keith, FOP president, there's a certain morality and a sense of justice that we should have. So if people that I represent are wrong, you're wrong.
Lynch looks at the protesting last summer in Cincinnati and full-on rioting elsewhere, and he hopes people see the unique predicament for police in a country of racial division.
When you march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, as John Lewis and those did down in Alabama, for freedom, and there's a force that says they don't want you to march, the governor's not going to stand there and stop you. He's going to send Keith and those guys. So even if they're like true good guys, but they are the people, they're the front lines of enforcing too often the racial oppression in this country. So it's not that any individual cop has to be a racist, but they're the ones who are going to get sent out.
It's why these men agree today progress will come as cooler heads prevail.
I just wish that the American citizens, not only here in Cincinnati but across the country, would realize that you have extreme voices on the left, you have extreme voices on the right, and they want nothing more than to continue this anger and animosity between the black community and policing.
20 years ago, we were considered the extreme voices.
You and I were.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I think, again, the beauty out of the work that we did was that we worked together to craft something that, changed policing in Cincinnati, didn't further divide the community.
There were times that he and I had very strong differences of opinion, but the fact of the matter is we've always had a tremendous amount of mutual respect for each other. And I think that today's leaders across the country could learn a lot from that, in my opinion.
I agree.
Fangman and Lynch, these men we saw locking horns 2 decades ago, actually came together through the good, the bad, and the ugly they shared in common back then. They reveal things about what went on behind the scenes that'll surprise you in parts of my interview you'll see tonight on WCPO 9 News.